Okay, in this video I just wanted to talk about viewfinder replacements on Lumix cameras, and specifically here we're going to talk about the GH6 viewfinder replacements and just sort of what to look for when you get a new one, because I see a lot of these have been kind of labelled incorrectly for people that actually sell them and clearly haven't tested them, and they're different across some of the cameras. So here I've got the GH5 viewfinder piece. Basically I'm filming on that camera, so I can't really show you it on that one, but you know, you look at these two. We'll take the one off the GH6. When you take it off, just be sure you kind of press this little button on the side. That's probably not in focus, but there's a little button under here. Press it down, push the eyepiece off, and then you can see here we've got the GH6 one and then we've got the GH5, and they look absolutely identical, so you just think, well, you can just use a GH5 one on the GH6. Unfortunately that's not the case, because when you flip them over, what you'll actually notice, if I can actually get the camera to focus on these, which maybe I can't, let me just see if I can get focus that close. There we go. So when they're flipped over like that, you can kind of see the one on my right is the GH6 piece, the one on my left is the GH5 piece. You can just about see down here in this corner there's a very, very small little indent, and essentially what that indent does is it basically allows this lock to work. So you can kind of see when I press it in, that just goes into that indent in the back of the eyepiece. So that allows that to, you know, sit on there nicely and clip in. But if I try to put the GH5 eyepiece on, even if I hold this back, you know, I can hold that back in. Unfortunately, it doesn't sit flush. It won't go all the way down. You can see there's this kind of little lip at the top, and on the back it doesn't go on properly. And you might think, well, you know, that's sort of workable, but the problem is, if it doesn't go all the way down, this sensor here is not going to work properly. And you know, it's the LVF kind of sensor, and we talked about that in another video, so I'll link to that. But it's you know, that's not going to work, so that's not really any good. And you know, you want it to sit flush on the eyepiece, otherwise, you know, you're not getting the full field of view from it. So you can kind of see the one from the 6 fits on nicely. You can pull it back off, but then that 5 just doesn't go any further than that. And obviously you don't want to break the viewfinder for the sake of saving a few pounds on an eyepiece. But interestingly, the GH6 ones, or the newer one with the indent, that will actually fit straight onto the GH5. So you can use a newer eyepiece on the GH5. I can't show you it, you just kind of have to take my word for it. But you know, this sits on there flush, no problems. It just slide it down, it just clicks straight on, it has no issues. But the older ones just don't work on the newer cameras, annoyingly. So where they've added that lock, it's kind of it's kind of removed that compatibility with the older viewfinder eyepieces. And like I say, it's quite confusing, because when you're looking online, you're very rarely going to see the back of these. They quite often just don't show the back in the product descriptions. But you're really looking for that if you're getting it for, you know, the GH6. I believe I haven't got one in front of me, but I believe the GH7 also has this same locking mechanism on the back. So, you know, you're going to want one that's kind of, that's not in focus at all, is it? You're going to want one that's got that piece on the back. Like I say, it's just a cutout, like a divot that it locks into. But yeah, when you're looking, I've seen a lot of listings for these eyepieces, and they're basically just wrong, because they say the compatibility is actually for older cameras, but also for these newer ones, and that's just not true. If that piece is not in there, some of them will have that piece taken out. And like I say, they will be, they'll work on older cameras, but it needs that little locking piece in there. So just sort of double check that is the case, because I think a lot of these listings just get updated and they don't really pay any attention to that. They just assume it's going to work, because like I say, if you're kind of eyeballing it, they do look absolutely identical. You wouldn't really even think they're different, to be honest, looking at them just at a glance. They just look like the same accessory. But the trouble with it is, if you get ones that don't fit, like I say, they'll block the sensor. You won't be able to see through the viewfinder properly. So just make sure you're kind of getting the right one. You can get different ones that are like kind of bigger ones. And I mean, I lose these things like all the time. They just like pop off. Not so much actually on the newer camera, thanks to the kind of lock on it, which is quite useful. But on my GH5, I've gone through loads of them, and older Canon cameras that I've got. I just have a few spares in my bag, because if you're somebody that carries your camera down by your side, you know, or up from a strap down on like your side, you just sort of brush against it and they just ping off. You'll never hear it because it's just like a little soft cushion, so it hits the ground, you don't hear it hit the ground, and that's it. You've just kind of lost it. You just realise it's gone. So I always have a couple spares of them. I'll link like a couple you can use down in the description, but you know, yeah, it's just one of those things, you know, don't get caught out by it, because it's just a bit of an annoying little mistake to make if you end up ordering the wrong ones and they don't fit on there. So yeah, hopefully you found that helpful. If you have, give the video a like. If you want to see more about Lumix cameras, check out the playlist on this channel, and please subscribe.